This is a Phoenix Data Project video, here to serve up little nuggets of insight to help you understand our pandemic. Most surveys show that many of the vaccine hesitant are concerned about the vaccine's long-term effects in our bodies. Thankfully, vaccines are deliberately designed to minimize long-term effects by not sticking around in the body. A good way to show this is by comparing how the vaccine works to how the virus works. Unless I say otherwise, I'll typically be referring to the Pfizer vaccine, but many of these arguments hold for all the vaccines currently approved in the US. Both the vaccine and the virus contain at their core RNA. To function, your body's cells use RNA to carry a copy of a genetic sequence out of the cell's nucleus. RNA is a temporary intermediary agent whose purpose in this case is to produce proteins. The RNA itself doesn't stick around and is absorbed by your body in 24 hours. Now let's compare the proteins that the vaccine and virus RNA encodes. The vaccine only encodes a single protein, the spike protein that occurs on the surface of the virus. Contrast this with the virus that encodes not just the spike protein, but everything else needed to self-replicate and produce more viruses. A body inoculated with the COVID vaccine starts producing spike proteins. A body exposed to COVID-19 starts producing more and more virus. All of these viruses have spike protein on their surface. In both instances, from the perspective of your immune system, it's now seen a novel spike protein floating around. With both the vaccine and virus, your immune system starts to mount an immune response to these spike proteins. This immune response trains your body to fight off a future infection by the virus. In the case of the vaccine, the spike proteins only stick around for 72 hours. By that point, your body clears them out. Your body doesn't make any more spike proteins after the initial vaccine injection. If you get infected with COVID, it is the unchecked replication of the virus that causes COVID-19. The virus and the spike proteins on its surface stick around until your body has mounted enough of an immune response to, hopefully, check and clear the virus out of your system. Anytime you have an immune response, there's the possibility that your own immune system might accidentally end up targeting some of your body's own cells. This is an undesirable effect known as an autoimmune response. Both the vaccine and the virus might trigger such a response. However, it's more likely to occur from the virus than from the vaccine, because both the virus and the vaccine express the spike protein, but the virus expresses many more proteins that could be targets. Some researchers theorize that one potential cause of long COVID is autoimmune in nature. To date, we have not seen confirmed reports of vaccine-induced autoimmune issues. Currently, we know not only that long COVID exists, but is relatively common. There have been occasions many decades ago when the inactive ingredients of vaccines caused side effects. So besides RNA, what are the other ingredients in the modern COVID vaccine? The vaccine has some fat or lipids to encapsulate the RNA and deliver it to your cells. It also contains salt and sugar. The salt stabilizes the pH of the liquid to keep it from being too acidic. The sugar helps stabilize the vaccine during freezing and when frozen. Pfizer was careful to only include RNA, lipids, salt, and sugar, and nothing else in their vaccine. The lack of preservatives, together with the fact that RNA is unstable, means that the vaccine needs to be stored at extremely low temperatures. The virus, by contrast, is typically delivered in a droplet or aerosol expelled by someone else and inhaled by you. With millions of people exposed to the vaccine and the virus, we have a very good idea of the immediate and near-term risks of both. The left square represents COVID-19 risks, the right represents vaccination risks. Roughly 2% of people infected with COVID-19 die, which I show by coloring 2% of the left square black. Because COVID-19 outcomes depend wildly on age, let's make the outer edge of the square fuzzy to represent the uncertainty in the outcome. If you don't die, you could get long COVID, which can occur in up to 30% of the people who get COVID-19. Again, the edge is fuzzy to represent the uncertainty in prevalence and severity. Now, on the right-hand square, let's show how often a severe allergic reaction, anaphylaxis, occurs. This rate of 1 in 100,000 is a tiny red box at the end of the arrow. If you were to get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the chances of a blood clot is 1 in a million. Both probabilities aren't visible until I zoom in on the diagram. Oh, and by the way, blood clots in people with COVID-19 are much more common than those triggered by the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Our knowledge of the long-term effects of both the vaccine and the virus are limited because neither's been around for very long. Our observation of the virus and its effects have a 6-month head start on the vaccine. The virus first infected a large number of people in January 2020, and the vaccine began to be administered to lots of people in about July of 2020. So we have about 10 months experience with the vaccine and about 16 months experience with the virus. We cannot say for certain how an infection or a vaccination will impact a person many years in the future. Life does not provide us with a risk-free path. Instead, we must decide between the risks of different paths. If you decide to remain unvaccinated, know that you'll probably be exposed to COVID-19 and that to the best of our current knowledge, the risks associated with the vaccine are far below the risks of COVID-19. Even for healthy, younger people, the risks of long COVID complications are hundreds or thousands of times greater than the risks of complications from vaccination. For myself, I know that the vaccine has been designed to dissipate and to be temporary. Natural selection, on the other hand, pushes the virus to become more and more infectious as it replicates around the globe, instead of remaining susceptible to the capricious virus, which we know can do a great deal of harm. I chose the vaccine, which was designed with an intent to do no harm. I also know that my immunity protects my community. The more people that are vaccinated, the less likely it is that the virus will find another foothold in the Bay Area and start another wave of infection. The more people that are vaccinated, the less likely it is that people who can't yet get vaccinated, like elementary school children and immunocompromised people, will be exposed to COVID-19. The more people that are vaccinated, the closer life will look like to pre-pandemic times, with kids in schools and large events held both without masks.